I don't really have much of an explanation for this, so I'll just say it. The past 48 hours, I've basically listened to nothing but the Black Eyed Peas. Yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how I got here. Well, it all started about 2 months ago when I realized, oh god, this album's gonna turn 10. That's right, the E.N.D, the 5th album by the Black Eyed Peas, turned 10 this past June, and the internet responded with a collective, wait, what's going on? This was a big deal when it came out. It made the Black Eyed Peas global superstars. Granted, that status lasted about as long as actual cooked Black Eyed Peas, but still, they were a defining part of pop in the 2000s and early 2010s. Why isn't this album's anniversary getting more attention? Well, to paraphrase an ancient proverb, I guess I'll have to be the one who's so 3008 while y'all are so 2000 and late.
I wanna rock right now. I wanna rock right now. I wanna rock right now. Now, rock right now. I wanna rock. Let's get it started in here.
While the Peas started out as a rap trio comprised of will.i.am, Taboo, and Apple D App, their third album, Elefunk, added to their formula a more calculated pop production, along with new member Fergie. That album and its follow-up, Monkey Business, garnered several hits, including Hey Mama, Where's the Love, Shut Up, My Humps, and Let's Get It Started. Their crowning moment came in 2004 when Hey Mama was featured in the hit animated classic, Garfield.
Well, baby.
Lasagna.
After Monkey Business and touring, the band took a break to focus on themselves. In particular, will.i.am began producing for other artists and dabbled in acting with X-Men Origins Wolverine. It was during filming for the movie in Australia that will.i.am began visiting local clubs and became inspired for the Peas' 5th album. Thanks X-Men Origins Wolverine, The E.N.D, or The Energy Never Dies, was released on June 3rd, 2009. It spawned 5 singles in the United States, and by June 2011, it had sold over 11 million copies. Critically, it earned the prestigious Metacritic Yellow Square, with some critics praising the new pop-centric approach, while others finding it rote and derivative. Even Robert Christgau weighed in with a... I'm sorry, what? Robert Christgau, the writer who wrote for These, and started this, gave this a this. 2 decades from now, album revivalists won't worry about will.i.am's crass motives or obvious samples. They'll hear ebullience beginning to end and envy us our sense of closure. Well, I can't speak for revivalists 2 decades later, but I can certainly speak for them 1 decade later. I am proud to say that 10 whole years later, the E.N.D is...
Not great, Bob.
Here's why.
Like that boom boom pow, them chickens jogging my style.
This might feel like a weird place to start, but I think it's the root of many of the issues this album has. The Peas have a pretty fluid approach when it comes to songwriting. After the typical intro verse, chorus, a Black Eyed Peas song can venture into really any direction, considering that it's a pop song. Oftentimes they bring in Apple for a verse, sometimes there's an extended outro, sometimes there's a bridge which briefly modulates to a related key, sometimes there's an extended bridge leading to an outro recalling the hook, sometimes it's just an entirely new song. At first I thought this was inspired by will.i.am's Australian adventures, but past Peas projects have similar songwriting, Elefunk in particular. Point is, Black Eyed Peas songs are, from a structural standpoint, relaxed. After all, they're meant for parties and good times. Speaking of which, the lyrics. I don't want this to take up too much time because mocking Black Eyed Peas lyrics may as well be its own esport, but real quick, the Peas mainly sing songs about 3 things: having a good time, attractive women, and being good at life. There are detours, which I'll get into later, but this is pretty much it. And boy, do they sing about these things in the most basic, surface-level way possible. I will say though, kudos to the Peas for finding plenty of ways to sing about these topics. 'Cause this album's over an hour long. This record has a semi-reasonable 15 tracks, but only 2 of them are under 4 minutes. Heck, 2 of them just eke past 5. Now you might be saying, loudly, into your phone, in a crowded coffee shop, "They're just trying to game streaming numbers!" Ah, but remember, this was 2009. Spotify wouldn't come out in the United States for another year, and none of the other streaming platforms even existed. And these days, artists game the streaming model by making shorter songs, not longer. So these songs are just long because the P's wanted them to be long. The triple combo of lax composition, monotonous lyrics, and long song lengths can make this album feel like a fatigue. Though you wouldn't know it from the opening stretch because
I got a feeling that
those 5 singles I mentioned earlier, they're the first 5 songs on the album. And, okay, if there's any part of this album you'll enjoy, it's the first 5 songs. The main reason for this is the production, which is unquestionably the best thing about this album, when it works. To the point where the excessive song lengths and repetitive lyrics don't seem as bad. Boom Boom Pow is a serviceable introduction to the new sound of the P's, even though it's not really about anything. Rock That Body utilizes a catchy, if annoying, sample of raw bass and DJ Easy Rock's It Takes Two. Meet Me Halfway works because of the focus on Fergie, and the one time the basic lyrics work in the context of a love song. I'ma Be drones on for the first few minutes, or should I say, buzzes on, but then changes into a whole new song that probably has the best chord progression on the whole album. And I Got a Feeling is, in my opinion, the album's best song. To quote resident YouTube music critic and professional Black Eyed Peas shredder Todd in the Shadows,
I'm one of the nitpickiest people in the world, and I honestly, really, just have no idea at all how anyone could not like this song.
And after that song, you might be saying, loudly, at your computer, while discussing a business deal, maybe this album isn't that bad! Maybe Robert Christgau has a point about leaving the bias at the door and just enjoying the ebullience beginning to end. I mean, it's not like the production quality is about to take a ludicrous nosedive or anything. That would be crazy. Oh no, that's not where we're going with this, is it? Here's a visual metaphor for what it feels like to go from the singles to the deep cuts. For whatever reason, the production quality just takes a massive dip at Alive. The most generic synths, the most basic drum loops, and the most stagnant melodies overtake the songs. And in turn, the lackluster and cliche subject matter stands out. Oh yay, Alive is about someone who makes you feel alive. Missing You is about missing someone. Ooh. Ring-a-ling is about getting a late night booty call. What fun. Party all the time. Ooh. Out of My Head actually features a unique performance from Fergie, mimicking the feeling of being drunk and partying, but it eventually becomes really grating. Electric City... Wait, what is that one about? And Showdown is about being better at life than someone to the point where you try to take them on via physical confrontation. It's a total drag. They could have easily taken 2 or 3 of these tracks off and the album would have improved. Actually, during my research, I found that will.i.am had the vision to continuously update the album with new remixes and even songs. As far as I'm aware, this never came to fruition, and how he would have done this in a pre-streaming world is a mystery, but hey, someone thought of it before Kanye. Sometimes the P's save songs that don't adhere to their typical lyrical topics for the very end of an album. Elephunk did this with the Apple song, Anxiety, and Where's the Love. The End does this as well, so let's see what unique ground they try to cover. First up, Now Generation. Okay, so you know Arcade Fire's Everything Now? Their most recent album that dealt a lot with the all-encompassing nature of technology and that at worst felt like your grandparents lecturing you about kids these days and how everyone's always on their phones and avocado toast. Well, imagine if the Black Eyed Peas had written a song like that in 2009.
We are the now generation. We are the generation now. I want money.
I want it. Text me and I text you back. Check me on that iChat. I'm all about that HTTP. You're a PC, I'm a Mac. MySpace in your space. Facebook is a new place. Google is my professor. Wikipedia checker.
Oh, how far we've come. Yeah, this is such a huge left turn in terms of production and lyrics. I honestly laughed when I first heard it. The worst thing about the song is you never know if being in the now generation is good or bad. Like, most of the song paints the now generation as impatient and just wanting money, but then will.i.am brings up
activated, rock the boat, just ask Barack who rocked the hope to now.
So is the now generation also impatient for social change? Next up is One Tribe, which is the big everybody come together song. Pretty unremarkable, except for when will.i.am drops some real gems like,
If I had an enemy, then my enemy's gonna try to come and kill me, cause I'm his enemy, there's one tribe, y'all.
Finally, Rockin' to the Beat returns to the P's lyrical wheelhouse, but I mean, it's 2/3 instrumental, and the only verse on here goes to Taboo of all people, and I like it. I'm a sucker for this kind of disco funk, but also it's just an odd anticlimactic way to end an album like this, which makes it refreshing. And that's it.
Yeah, but it's not real, Will.
It is real.
We're not robots.
It's your call. I'd say it's definitely a relic of its time. Not much in pop today sounds like it, from the production to the songwriting to the lyrics, even the flows and how on the beat they are. No triplet flows or scotch snaps here, folks. Also, the P's themselves haven't really been a part of the cultural zeitgeist since, I don't know, their Super Bowl halftime show, maybe Fergie's reinterpretation of the national anthem, but I can't bring myself to hate it, because it did get me thinking about something that's relevant since we're approaching the end of this decade. Nostalgia. Nostalgia can be one of the most powerful influencers in music. This 1999 study, for example, found that the music we listen to when we're young has a remarkable power over our minds as we mature. This 2008 study went further and defined a reminiscence bump, primarily for music that we discover in our teens. So for a mid-20-something like me, that means that the singles from this album had an undeniable psychological impact on me. Yay! Remember, these songs were everywhere, and not just on the radio. I was also first getting into YouTube, and I used to watch people like Todd in the Shadows rip into these songs. I grew up with the P's, both when I enjoyed their music and when I enjoyed dragging it through the mud. I remember having that kind of relationship with a lot of pop back then. I couldn't help it. Pop music in general felt monstrous and omnipresent, and nowadays it feels so lifeless. The stuff that's actually becoming popular isn't coming from pop radio. Heck, look at Old Town Road. As of this video, it's been the #1 song in America for weeks, beating out every single major pop star, including Taylor Swift. Twice. I don't think Old Town Road's reign is a bad thing. Nay, I'd say the rise of streaming in general has led to fewer barriers of entry for artists and fewer barriers between genres. But whether it's because of social media, a dip in popularity in accordance with pop's history, or typical pop music just doesn't have the same cultural relevance it did at the start of the decade. And despite my best efforts and knowing that pop couldn't stay at the top forever, I still felt a strange, nostalgic sense of disappointment. Tonight might be a good night, but tonight's eventually gotta end. If you go to the music video for I Got a Feeling and scroll through the comments, you'll notice a trend. 3 words for this song: memories, childhood, nostalgia. 2009 wasn't even that long ago, but it feels like forever. We were in the golden days without knowing it. You spend your childhood wanting to grow up, and spend your adulthood wishing you were a child again. Makes you want to cry because you can't stay young forever. None of the other hits from this time get the same kind of aching, pining responses as the singles from the end. And the more of these I read, the more I thought about that Robert Christgau review. I do mind will.i.am's crass motives, and I wouldn't say the album is ebullience beginning to end, but I do envy that sense of closure. 10 years later, it's strange to hear music that is this free of concern or worry or context, just music about having a good time and literally nothing else. I guess I forgot what that feels like. Or maybe that's what happens when you grow up. Did I just make a sentimental, mushy video about the Black Eyed Peas?